Welcome to another episode of the Crime Decoder, with another mystery, another truth to discover. To truly grasp the magnitude of what happened on June 26, 1975, we need to step back. Decades back, to a place scarred by broken promises, cultural genocide, and a legacy of systemic neglect. Welcome to Pine Ridge, South Dakota. In the 1970s, it was the most dangerous place in America per capita. But why? For over a century. The U.S. government systematically tried to erase Native identity, stealing land, language, and culture. The 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty promised the Lakota their sacred Black Hills, but gold changed everything. By the mid-20th century, Pine Ridge had become a forgotten land, riddled with poverty, alcoholism, and despair, a living consequence of broken promises. This was no accident. It was design. A strategy of suppression masked as policy. In 1968, a spark ignited. A group of urban Native activists, fed up with police brutality and cultural erasure, formed the American Indian Movement, or AIM. What started in Minneapolis soon spread like wildfire across the U.S. AIM wasn't just about protest, it was about protection, about pride, about survival. But for federal agencies, especially the FBI, this looked like resistance, and resistance was met with surveillance. Under J. Edgar Hoover's directive, the FBI had already launched COINTELPRO, a counterintelligence program targeting civil rights leaders. AIM became one of their top priorities. FBI agents infiltrated meetings, planted informants, disrupted communication lines, and attempted to pit activists against one another. This wasn't law enforcement, it was psychological warfare. Then came Richard Dick Wilson, elected tribal chairman of the Oglala Sioux tribe in 1972. Wilson's rule was immediately controversial. He was accused of nepotism, corruption, and authoritarian control. But more troubling, he created a private militia. The Guardians of the Oglala Nation, or Goons. The Goons targeted traditionalists and AIM members, intimidating, beating, and in some cases killing. Between 1973 and 1976, over 60 AIM supporters were murdered on Pine Ridge. Virtually none of those cases were solved. In February 1973, enough was enough. Hundreds of AIM members and traditional Lakota elders took over the town of Wounded, site of the 1890 massacre, demanding government accountability and tribal reform. For 71 days, they stood their ground against federal marshals, National Guard, and the FBI. 2 Native men were killed. Scores were injured. It was a standoff that gripped the nation and enraged the Bureau. Wounded Knee wasn't just a protest, it was a declaration. But to the FBI, it was war. In the years after Wounded Knee, Pine Ridge turned into a surveillance state. AIM members were followed, mail was intercepted, phones tapped. FBI presence surged, but so did the fear. By 1975, AIM had a small encampment on the Jumping Bull property. They were there at the request of elders, protecting them from goon attacks. But to the FBI, this wasn't security. It was sedition, and plans were underway to put an end to it. On the morning of June 26, 1975, FBI agents Jack Kohler and Ronald Williams entered the reservation, reportedly looking for robbery suspect Jimmy Eagle. But they didn't go in quietly. They didn't go alone. Shots would be fired. Lives would be lost, and a cover-up would begin. Pine Ridge in the 1970s wasn't just a backdrop. It was a battlefield. A place where history, hatred, and hidden agendas collided. And what happened next would spark one of the most controversial FBI cases in American history. June 26, 1975. Pine Ridge Reservation, South Dakota. A sunny Thursday that would soon descend into chaos and controversy, marking one of the most divisive episodes in the history of the FBI, and a flashpoint in the struggle for Native sovereignty. Just after 9 a.m., FBI agents Jack Kohler and Ronald Williams, driving to unmarked vehicles, entered the Jumping Bull compound. Their stated objective: locate Jimmy Eagle, a young Lakota man wanted for the alleged theft of a pair of cowboy boots during a bar fight days earlier. But what raised immediate questions even decades later was this: why were 2 agents entering such volatile territory without a warrant, without backup, and with full knowledge of the simmering tension between the FBI, goon squads, and the American Indian Movement? This wasn't just any location. The Jumping Bull Ranch was known to house AIM members, many of whom were armed, deeply distrustful of the federal government, and on high alert after years of harassment and violence. Whether Jimmy Eagle was there or not remains unclear. But what's indisputable is this. The moment the FBI cars arrived, gunfire erupted and everything changed. Witnesses report a sudden and intense exchange of fire. It's believed that as Kohler and Williams approached, at least one AIM member opened fire, believing it was another goon squad ambush. Both agents were quickly pinned down. Ronald Williams radioed for help. His desperate message, fragmented and panicked, would later be played in court. The FBI radio recording of the agent was,
"This is Williams. We're under heavy fire. Need assistance now."
Kohler was severely wounded early on. His car was disabled. Williams tried to provide cover, but was running low on ammunition. Meanwhile, nearby AIM members, including Leonard Peltier, arrived on the scene amidst the confusion. To this day, it remains unclear who fired first or who fired last. But by 12:15 p.m., both agents were dead, shot at close range. Execution style, according to the FBI. Moments after the agents fell, another young man would die. Joe Stuntz, a 21-year-old AIM activist. Witnesses say he was shot by a Bureau of Indian Affairs sniper while wearing one of the agent's bulletproof vests, possibly taken in the chaos. Yet unlike the swift investigation that followed the FBI deaths, Stuntz's killing was never investigated. No forensic analysis. No accountability. No justice. One life sparked a federal manhunt. Another life was ignored. In the aftermath of the shooting, panic erupted. Those at the compound fled into the surrounding terrain, many fearing mass arrests or retaliation. By 3 p.m., more than 150 federal agents had descended on Pine Ridge, but Peltier and several others were gone. The manhunt began immediately. Roadblocks were set up. Trails tracked. By that night, Pine Ridge was under federal lockdown. This is where the mystery deepens and where questions of a cover-up begin. Autopsies revealed both agents had been shot at close range, possibly with a .22-3 caliber rifle, matching one owned by Peltier. But the key ballistic report connecting the shell casing to his weapon later revealed to be inconclusive. And here's what the jury didn't hear. Several witnesses changed their stories. Others were allegedly coerced, and key evidence, including photographs of the crime scene, mysteriously disappeared. So if Peltier wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, who did? And why did the FBI so quickly lock onto him as the primary suspect? As the news broke to FBI agents slain on sovereign native land, the national media pounced. Headlines screamed terror at Pine Ridge. The FBI promised justice, and Leonard Peltier was soon branded America's most wanted. But justice, real justice, requires truth, and as this story unfolded, it became clear. The truth had been buried deep. The day of the murders wasn't just a tragic clash. It was the spark that ignited a firestorm of legal and political battles, ones that would last for decades. Leonard Peltier, native activist, AIM leader, and convicted murderer. But ask his supporters, and they'll tell you something very different. That Peltier isn't a criminal. He's a political prisoner, symbol of justice denied. So what's the truth? After the shootout at Jumping Bull Ranch on June 26, 1975, Leonard Peltier disappeared. A nationwide manhunt began.
Ow.
Months later, Peltier resurfaced across the border in Canada. But Canada wasn't just a hiding place. It became a battleground for truth, for power, and for Peltier's life. The U.S. pushed hard for extradition. But to convince Canadian authorities, they needed a witness. Enter Myrtle Pourbaix. Myrtle Pourbaix, a native woman living on Pine Ridge, signed to affidavits. Indem. She claimed she was Peltier's girlfriend and had seen him shoot the agents. Those statements helped seal his extradition from Canada. But there was just one problem. She later admitted she had never met Leonard Peltier. Myrtle Pourbaix, 1990s interview.
They threatened to take my daughter. They told me I'd never see her again unless I signed. So I signed, but I never saw the shooting. I wasn't even there.
Despite recanting her statement multiple times, despite her affidavit being riddled with inconsistencies, Canadian officials approved Peltier's extradition. February 1977, Leonard Peltier is extradited to the U.S. He's charged with the murder of agents Kohler and Williams. The trial is moved to Fargo, North Dakota, a predominantly white jury pool. His defense team's request to move the trial to a native majority region is denied. Key evidence was withheld. The jury never saw documents showing COINTELPRO surveillance. Witnesses for the defense were blocked from testifying. The prosecution used a now-debunked ballistic report as their smoking gun. The prosecution's case hinged on a single piece of evidence, a .223. Casing allegedly matched to Peltier's AR-15 rifle. This suggested that Peltier had executed the agents at close range. FBI ballistics expert Evan Hodge admitted under oath the casing could not be definitively matched to Peltier's weapon. Yet despite the admission, the conviction stood. 3 key witnesses later recanted their statements, saying they were threatened, intimidated, or manipulated into testifying against Peltier. But the jury never heard that. Why? Because the court ruled the recantations inadmissible. Think about that. Witnesses said they lied under pressure, and the court refused to reconsider their statements. Peltier was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. But outside the courtroom, a global movement began. Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, Robert Redford, even Pope Francis all questioned the fairness of Peltier's trial. This is not just a miscarriage of justice, it's a weaponization of justice against a people who have suffered for centuries. Documents remain sealed to this day. The FBI has repeatedly denied full FOGA requests, by Peltier's legal team raising a chilling question. What are they hiding? According to former U.S. Attorney Kevin McKiernan, in 2021, if there's nothing to hide, why keep the truth buried? Evidence of COINTELPRO's influence on Pine Ridge, surveillance logs that may exonerate Peltier, testimonies suggesting alternative shooters, all locked away. For over 40 years, Leonard Peltier has been behind bars. He's never admitted guilt. His words remain as defiant as ever, according to Peltier's recorded statement.
I didn't kill those agents. I wasn't even there when they were shot. But I know why I'm here because I fought back.
Peltier's health has declined. He's suffered multiple illnesses. And yet, the U.S. government has denied every request for parole or clemency, even under presidents who claimed sympathy. Let's dive more into details. Covert operations, informants hidden in plain sight, psychological manipulation. This wasn't just policing, it was warfare. Welcome to COINTELPRO on Pine Ridge. COINTELPRO counterintelligence program began in 1956 under J. Edgar Hoover, originally to disrupt communism. By the late 60s, its focus shifted. Civil rights, black power, and radical activism. AM quickly became a high-risk target. The FBI's methods were ruthless. Break leaders from within, spread rumors, bank on internal distrust. By 1973, informants were sprinkled like seeds across Pine Ridge. Farmhands, clerks, tribal council members, all paid to report on their people. These agents infiltrated meetings, reported cold cases as AIM plots, and watched every AIM mail and phone line. And with each piece of intel, the FBI prepped the battlefield. COINTELPRO wasn't reactive, it was proactive. The FBI schemed to turn AIM's allies against themselves. They spread false rumors, sometimes distributing anonymous letters claiming AIM planned violent coups, or that goons were secretly AIM. Suspicion destroyed unity. It didn't destroy AIM outright, but it amplified the noise. Trust collapsed. Declassified evidence shows agents targeted individuals. Anna Diamond, prominent AIM supporter. FBI spread letters accusing her of betrayal. Paul Eagle, tribal councilman, arrested on federal charges after FBI agent testimony. Marie Two Eagles had her private letters intercepted and leaked. Tension turned into violence. The GOONs, empowered by Wilson, started targeting AIM with physical intimidation. FBI's silent complicity was deadly. Between 1973 to 75, over 60 suspicious killings rocked Pine Ridge. Many were never investigated. COINTELPRO created chaos and then vanished, leaving bodies behind. Agents Kohler and Williams entered Jumping Bull under this canopy of fear. They walked into a powder keg, armed, unprepared, and misled. COINTELPRO intel said AIM was planning, AIM was radical, AIM was violent. But once firearms erupted and bodies fell, the FBI had its excuse. After the shootout, COINTELPRO tactics shifted to defense. FBI agents coordinated press releases, suppressed reports, sealed files. Ballistics, classified. Witness statements redacted. The official narrative was shaped and dissent silenced. Today's Pine Ridge still bears that legacy. COINTELPRO never admitted guilt. FBI never apologized. But scars run deep. After years of controversy, coercion, and conflicting narratives, Leonard Peltier finally faced the U.S. legal system. But was it justice or vengeance? From the moment Peltier was extradited to Fargo, red flags went up. The Judge Ralph Guy had spoken publicly against AIM, the jury pool. Not a single Native American. The defense requested relocation to Rapid City or another reservation area. Denied. When your judge's impartiality is in question and your jury is unrepresentative, is it justice? Key documents were never turned over to the defense. CI affidavits, COINTELPRO memos, even ballistics reports kept hidden. The court later admitted the prosecution withheld 38 documents, only admitting them after Peltier's appeal. We argued the prosecution violated Brady Rule's non-disclosure of exculpatory evidence. Myrtle Poor Bear, the pivotal witness used to extradite Peltier, was never present at the scene and later recanted. Yet her affidavit remained in use. But that wasn't the only problem. The cornerstone. A brass .223 shell casing, allegedly matched to Peltier's rifle. That's what the jury heard. But at a 1987 OPR hearing, FBI ballistics expert Evan Hodge testified he had no conclusively matching evidence. Yet court never reopened the case. That match integral to a murder conviction was unreliable. In July 1977, the jury found Peltier guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 life sentences. Judge Guy, your actions were premeditated, deliberate, deserving punishment. No clemency, no probation, just 2 lifetimes behind bars. The defense immediately appealed. They pointed to prejudiced jury, withheld evidence, ballistics doubts. Still no relief. They escalated to the Supreme Court, denied certiorari. To this day, all judicial avenues have failed him. Global voices decried the trial as political theater. Amnesty International called it unfair. Robert Redford called it a judicial travesty, fundamentally unfair, a mockery of due process. Families of slain agents believed justice was served. Fred and Donna Williams maintained Peltier's guilt. But some branches of their family now question the process, urging re-examination. Leonard Peltier has spent over 4 decades behind bars, but his voice and his struggle have never been silent. Around the world, people have risen up in solidarity, demanding justice. Yet within Washington, powerful forces have worked hard to keep his case closed. In 1976, Amnesty International declared Peltier a prisoner of conscience. That rare designation signals a case marred by political motives, not criminal justice. Leonard Peltier's case became a flashpoint for international solidarity. When Nelson Mandela called to re-examine a tarnished trial, he shined global attention on Pine Ridge. The movement crosses borders drawn by human rights, indigenous solidarity, and anti-imperial sentiment. Pine Ridge became the epicenter of what may be the longest-standing global protest in U.S. criminal history. Indigenous activists talk about parallels to Standing Rock and ongoing sovereignty struggles. Canadian First Nations share their resonance with Peltier's case, petition numbers, protest attendance, social media growth, signaling new waves of activism. But for every rally, there was a rebuttal. The FBI held firm, calling Peltier's convictions sound and based on evidence. The Department of Justice repeatedly rejected Mercer's clemency petitions. Peltier's legal team filed appeals challenging jury bias. Withheld evidence, shaky ballistics, but each president denied clemency. Each court sided with prosecution. Peltier has had zero relief in court, zero relief politically. Why? Because admitting the case was unfair would mean admitting a failure of the federal system. They say his body is in prison, his spirit is not. Leonard Peltier's case lit a spark. Now, countless others carry the flame, demanding transparency, demanding reform, demanding truth. So why is the federal government afraid of reopening this case? Because doing so could unravel decades of misconduct, or even acknowledge long-buried wrongdoing. It's been nearly 5 decades, but the questions still echo louder than the answers. Why were 2 FBI agents operating alone without backup in what was widely known as hostile territory? Why did the FBI wait hours before retrieving their bodies? Why was so much evidence withheld, altered, or destroyed? And the question no one dares ask aloud, if Leonard Peltier didn't pull the trigger, who did? On June 26, 1975, agents Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler entered the Jumping Bull property to serve a warrant, but they were alone. No SWAT, no backup, no tactical plan. Why? That wasn't a standard operation. It was provocation. Trial documents reveal shocking omissions. FBI ballistics tests were either altered or entirely hidden from the defense. Exculpatory evidence that could have cleared Peltier was suppressed. FBI forensics couldn't definitively prove that Peltier's rifle killed the agents. Shell casings were inconclusive. No blood, no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses tying him to the fatal shots. Theory 1. Multiple shooters. Footprint evidence suggests more than one person fled the scene. Timeline analysis. Multiple directions of gunfire. Theory 2. Friendly fire. Experts raise possibility that return fire and crossfire led to agents' deaths. Could an unintentional shooter have been protected? Theory 3. Framed by design. Some A members believe Peltier was the chosen fall guy, an easy symbol of resistance to crush. This isn't about unlocking a historical whodunit. It's about the integrity of justice. When questions are buried, democracy decays. The absence of evidence, belief takes over. Many supporters believe Leonard Peltier is innocent, not just legally, but morally. Others cling to the conviction like it's doctrine. The RESMURS case didn't end in a courtroom. It still lingers in prison cells, in files labeled classified, and in the collective memory of a wounded nation. Whether Leonard Peltier pulled the trigger or not, he became the symbol of a justice system that bends, perhaps breaks, when challenged by truth. At the center of this case lies a deeper war, not just between two individuals or ideologies, but between colonial systems of power and native sovereignty. Power never concedes voluntarily, and in the 1970s, native resistance was punished like sedition. The government had a choice, transparency or control. They chose the latter. Beyond politics and theories are real lives Leonard Peltier's, and those of the agents who died that day. Leonard Peltier is now in his late 70s. Decades in maximum security, denied parole, denied medical care, denied hope. If he dies in prison, history will not forgive those who kept the truth buried. The RESMURS murders were not an isolated tragedy. They were a symptom of systemic oppression, of unresolved genocide, and of state power unchecked. So what now? After trials, protests, documentaries, books, does justice still have a path? The FBI says the case is closed. But truth has a way of picking locks. This isn't just about Leonard Peltier. It's about how a government responds to resistance. It's about how stories are shaped by silence, and how justice, once lost, demands generations to reclaim. Whether you believe he's innocent or guilty, one fact is undeniable. Justice failed Pine Ridge. And until the FBI opens every sealed file, until every witness can speak without fear, we are left with bullets buried deeper than the truth itself. If this case disturbed you, imagine how many more remain hidden. On this channel, we don't let the powerful write the final chapter. We investigate, we expose, and we remember. Subscribe to the Crime Decoder, because the stories they want buried are the ones we dig up.